All right, everybody, welcome to this class on your karmic path, your karmic mission. This is an astrology class. I'm going to show you in this class how to understand what your karmic path is and how to see how it's unfolding in your life and how to work with that energy. It's much easier to embrace your mission and purpose in this life once you understand the energies that are underpinning it and the energies that are supporting you. Okay, so I hope you enjoy this class and get a pen and paper and get ready to take notes.
Let's see. Hello, Alessia. I was going to say it's just Alessia and us. Hey there. Hello, Miss Alessia. How are you guys? Hey, Kat. Hello, everybody. Welcome in Vanessa and Susan, Sue, Marla. Hi, Diana. Bonnie, you guys. Awesome. Hello. Hi, you guys. Oh, I'm so glad to see you here tonight. I'm very excited for this class. I hope you are too. Hi, Robert. Sweet Sue. Love it. Catherine. Hi, Jessie Barra. How you doing, Diane, Heather, Desiree? Is that Desi?
Yeah.
Desi Slava, hello. Yeah, we're.
Oh, no. You mean
No,
Desiree?
that's not. Yeah,
no,
that's not.
No, sorry.
That's okay. All right. Hello,
Hi, Alessia.
everybody.
I just saw your note.
What's going on? All right, my darling, we are charged. All right. So I hope you're excited for tonight. I'm excited for tonight. This is the first time we're talking about the rising sign kind of like in a vacuum, which it's not. But I thought it was important to do this class because just why I titled it, your karmic path, it really does outline some stuff for you. And I feel like a lot of people kind of just blow off the rising sign as like, wow, that's like, I don't know, it's something that's there. But it's way more than that. So welcome in, you guys. Tonight is just a teaching session. We're not doing Q&A tonight. So what I want you to do is write down your very good questions, your very excellent questions, and we are going to have a live Q&A on April 1st, right, Colleen? I think that's right. I'm going to be in Arizona. I'm going to be in Sedona when I'm answering your questions. So going to do a bunch of cool stuff out there. It's going to be just amazing. So I'm really glad. I think we were going to have it on the 31st, and then I totally spaced the fact that I will be actually on the plane during the time that Q&A class or Q&A session would have taken place. So it's April 1st, okay? So we'll send you some update or some reminders of that so you won't forget about it.
And you definitely do not want me answering the questions.
That's not necessarily true. Colleen, the other day, didn't you do like this amazing email? I think you did an amazing email the other day about astrology and stuff. So
yeah,
she's there. All right. So let's talk a little bit. I'm going to share my screen. Let's see. Colleen is definitely qualified. She most definitely is. Share. All right. So let me do this. Oh, sorry, I'm going. How come I can't? Trying to make it full screen and this bar is in the way. Isn't that weird? Oh, here I go. I got it. See, I'm getting better at this all the time, Colleen, right? All right, there we go. So, understanding your karmic path here is my plan for you tonight. And this is very important information because I feel like, when we do these isolation things, we talk about North Node, we talk about Chiron, we talk about Saturn, and we talk about Jupiter and Mars and all these kind of things. And, my fervent wish is for all y'all to put together the pieces yourself, your own personal puzzle, and just see how complex this information and how healing this information can be. So I really think this is kind of an amazing experience for me as a teacher and as a student of astrology at the same time. So tonight, what we're going to go over is we're going to look at the rising sign, what it is, why it's important. We are going to go through all the ascendant signs, and I'm going to show you how it kind of maps your karma, okay, in your astrology chart. And, you know, the mapping here, the significance of that and how it works in your life. And we're going to go through each of the signs. And honestly, like, I feel like the channel is moving from awareness, knowledge of this information to then, I think our step 2, as we're, you know, moving forward, is to start working with this information. And I personally believe, I was reading this woman today. She's a Black woman who is an astrologer, and she was talking about 2020, and she was saying that astrology actually helped her navigate that kind of dumpster fire of a year, and helped her with self-care. It helped her understand what was coming and why it was important to her. And I think the key is sort of understanding these pieces, and then using them as either journal prompts or using them as meditation tools. You know, if Chiron is really stumping you, I know this is about a rising sign, but if Chiron is really stumping you, I'm, you know, recommending that you do a meditation, you know, go into meditation with, you know, and ask in your guides and say, you know, how do I work with this information, and how do I understand it better for myself? So I want to say that it's a radical tool for self-care. Okay. And if you look at it that way, if it's not just about the knowing of it, it's about the using it and doing it. When I started working with this information, with the rising sign and ascendant, I started thinking to myself, like, this is about actually stepping inside your birth chart, stepping inside your, the moment of your birth, the moment that you became, you know, like arrived on the scene, and how that actually impacts you for the rest of your life. So one thing I do want to say to you, that I don't know if I say it enough, is that your astrology chart evolves with you. So your birth chart, you know, especially when you're in your 50s, right? You've come through a lot of learning, and, you know, I talk about progress signs and other kinds of things, but you can just look at your birth chart and you can look at how it progresses. And I will share with you my own experience of how I'm using this information. So you can kind of, you know, either that'll resonate with you, or you'll be like, okay, I'm not sure, maybe it's not ready, you're not ready for it yet, or you are. So either way, you know, you'll have access to this class. So when you're like 6 months from now, you're like, oh, damn, I need to look at that. Then you'll be able to go back and see it. Okay. So let's just do some basics here. You know, we're talking about Western tropical astrology, where the natural year started this past weekend on March 20th and 21st, the Northern Hemisphere, vernal equinox. The Southern Hemisphere is the autumnal equinox. But this is the start of the year, March 20th, 21st. And Aries is the baby of the chart. So in the natural chart, you'll see that at the 9 o'clock position in the first house. Now, your chart is going to be specific to the date you were born and the location of where you were born on the planet. Western astrology is based on an Earth-centered system. I apologize to those of you who are a little more advanced, but I want to make sure I say these things because I don't want to get too far down the road and people are like, oh, I'm thinking about Vedic. I know I'm thinking about Vedic. So the reason that your location of your birth is so relevant is because Western astrology focuses on the sky at the moment from the location of your birth. That's why that's so relevant. And the time of your birth is really critical because your rising sign changes every 2 hours, a rising sign. And I read a few articles this weekend when I was preparing for this class that, you know, different zodiac, you know, the star, the constellations, some of them move every, you know, some of them move every 2 hours. Some of them, it's more like an hour and a half. Some of them is more like 4 hours, right? So, you know, certain signs can linger longer than others, but it's a good, you know, rule of thumb that an ascendant, a rising sign, changes every 2 hours. So, just for a second to go back to Vedic is based on the stars. It's not really based on you as the center of the universe. Vedic astrology or sidereal astrology is based on the stars. So it's just a very different point of view. It's not human centric, it's star centric. It's just a different way of telling time, really. Okay, that's what's the difference between the sidereal and Western is. And I do believe, there is some dispute among astrologers about Placidus or whole house. I think Placidus is the default, tropical is the default, and whole house is something that is gaining favor. So there is no such thing as a body of knowledge that stands still, right? Like, when people start working with the information, they have different theories and then they prove them. And then, the last 100 years of this information has changed. So I feel like in 2021, as we're, all evolving, I'm sure astrology is also going to evolve with us. So let's just roll with it. Okay, so what I do want to say to you is that it's very important to know your birth time. This information is based on birth time and birth location. And if you have an ascendant that is very late in the degree, 28, 29, I'm going to go back as far as 27, but no further back than that. There's 30 degrees in every single sign, 0 to 29. There is no such thing as a 30 degree, and it goes right back to 0. So when it shifts into the next sign. So if your ascendant is very late, mine happens to be 29 degrees Libra. That's why I want to share with you my information, because mine is a little unusual, and everybody's, it's pretty rare to have a house only be in a single sign. It's pretty rare. Mine are sort of cut up that way, which is good because my ascendant is on 29 degrees. So things kind of fall, almost like whole house, they kind of fall that way. But it's still in Libra, and my whole first house pretty much is in Scorpio, which does make a difference. Okay. So if your ascendant is very late in the sign, you could have, as you grow, right? 29 degrees is like, when I was a little kid, it moved out of Libra. I kind of hung on to Libra for a pretty long time before understanding the scorpionic nature. Until I was a teenager, I wasn't really into the Scorpio thing. But you'll know that you might want to look at the sign after your ascendant. So I know that astrology is quite mathematical, but I do feel in this case, when we're talking about ascendant sign and first house experience, that's what we're talking about, to map the whole houses, right? It lays out how the signs go around the zodiacal wheel. Okay, it lays it out. The ascendant is the like the flag in the sand of where it starts, and it will map the rest of the houses. So that's why it's so important. If your sign, if it's very early in a sign, like if you have 0 degrees, 1, 2 degrees, then you might want to look at the sign previous to it. Okay, you might want to see and pay attention to that previous. Okay, so that's something just to keep in mind as we're working through this information. So this is my chart here. This is not astro-charts.com. I'm just using this for those of you who are new to astrology. Around the edges, there are 12 houses, okay? And around the edges are all of the signs. They always go in order. Whoopsie, what have I done? They always go in order, okay? So if my chart starts, see the 29 degree Libra there with the little off to the 9 o'clock spot? That's where my ascendant is. And my whole first house pretty much is in Scorpio. It goes from Scorpio around to Libra in order, always in order. The second thing you'll see is the house numbers. Okay, so when whatever chart you're looking at, this information is all the same. It might not be in Roman numerals, but it's it's all the same. That the houses, first house over here with my Scorpio, second house, third house, and it goes all the way around. It's 12 houses, 12 zodiac signs. These little guys in the middle, the number 3, little arrow here is the planet. So that's what you'll see in the middle of your chart. And all of these lines are called aspect lines. And those are things that are important, maybe not for tonight's class, but for another class for sure, all right, in the future. So I just wanted to give you a very basic understanding of where you see the information and how it's laid out. Okay, so let's just jump right in here. Your ascendant or rising sign, those two words can be used absolutely interchangeably. They mean exactly the same thing, okay? Your ascendant sign is your first house. So your first house, even mine, starts at 29 degrees. It is starting my life at that position. So if you're moving out of a very late degree into a different sign for your first house, that's pretty relevant. So don't just look at the ascendant information. Well, it's in Libra, 29 degrees. That means I ignore Scorpio in my first house. No, I want you to pay attention to both of those things, because really all it does is it's moving in your life from an early life experience through that first house energy. You progress, you grow, and you move from one energy to the other. Okay, so your first house shows your personality, your life focus, your health, what you look like, your interests, your purpose, all of these things. So Libra has a particular kind of energy to it, and Scorpio has a very different kind of energy to it. And I will say my own experience of moving from a Libra, which was very much as a young person before age 14 or 13. And I'm just using that kind of arbitrarily for me, because that's when death really paid a visit, and Scorpio and the first house really took hold of me. So I definitely moved into a different way of filtering my energy. I definitely moved. And so I just want to use my own experience here, because that's also important with astrology. We can be very, kind of dogmatic about things and be like, nope, 29 degrees is Libra, you're Libra, and you're always a Libra. And I'm just positing to you, I'm saying to you as someone who has a very late degree ascendant, that things do mature. Your birth chart matures. There's no question about it. Okay, so when you're looking at your ascendant, look at how far into the first house your ascendant goes. Your ascendant historically is sort of the mask you wear in public. And it's not about like a fake thing. It's not that. It's that this is how you want to present yourself in the world because of where you were born, right? You're born in a certain city, in a certain kind of experience, a certain kind of family, a certain kind of way of being. That's why the location of birth is relevant. And there's culture around that. There's all kinds of stuff. And so how your Scorpio, first house Scorpio, whatever, first house Libra, that looks different in different cultures. That looks different, like how you personalize it is important. It's not just like hey, all Scorpios are the same, because we damn well know that's not true, right? We know that's not true. So I'm getting a thing on my leg here. But it is a natural way of presenting ourselves. It's the first impression we give. And it can also be used as a shield to guard our true nature. So when you're born in a certain time. So like if you were born in the 20s as a woman, you may be experiencing, or you may be expressing your personality, even though you're Sagittarius, differently than if you were born in the 70s, differently than if you were born in the year 2000, okay? You would be expressing yourself differently. And so the signs also allow you to work with them and personalize them. It's not just one key word, although that's an easy way to remember things and, work with that information as much as you can. Your ascendant does show your image, your style, your mannerisms, and it does weaken in your life. Like I said, depending on how deep into the sign your ascendant is, it will weaken. And you will definitely feel like you're shifting into the other thing. Like I said, it was very early in my life. My father passed away when I was 14. death showed up in our house when I was 9. Possibly, well, maybe even earlier than that. My grandmother passed away when I was 3, and I was very channeling her or talking to her. I guess that's how I, said it to my mother. And she was like, "Stop talking to Nana," right? And this was like when she died and I'm still talking to her, right? And then my father got ALS, and so he was ill from when I was 9 to when I was 14. So that was growing up in a household with older parents and with a lot of, honestly, death energy. He was not going to get better. Okay. There was not, ALS. They didn't even know he had ALS until after he died because they weren't diagnosing it correctly or something like that. They thought he had injured his cerebellum and his balance was all screwed up, but they did all that after he had passed away and we learned he had ALS. So that's a lot of time to be living with the awareness that this person is transitioning out of life. So I saw that scorpionic energy really early in my life. So as you get toward 30, like when you have your first Saturn return, it takes 30 years for Saturn to go through all of your signs and come back around to its original location. And they even say, like, you probably shouldn't get married before age 30 because you change so significantly in such a powerful way with your ascendant moving into the next sign and Saturn coming in. You're just profoundly different. So I talked about the time and the birthplace of the ascendant. It can show environment and conditioning and culture and all of these things. And the rising sign is really, I think it's the most important thing of the, sun, moon, rising, and Venus, with a possible exception of moon. I feel like rising sign and moon to me are almost neck and neck. But the rising sign does serve as a filter. Like I said, it's how you're projecting yourself in the world through which your moon and sun are expressed, right? This is how you're putting yourself out there, and your moon, your heart, your feelings and what you want in your life, and your sun, your actual, full-on personality. This rising sign is your filter. It is a way of kind of like, I'm this way to this person, and I'm this way, you're this way to your friends in school, and you're this way to your parents, and you're this way to Aunt Martha, and you're this way to your teacher, right? And there's nothing nefarious about that. That's perfectly normal to have different ways of behaving. And that's what the ascendant is all about. So there's my ascendant. I told you 29 degrees. We're going to talk about that a little bit. For those of you who are new to astrology, which I think a lot of you have a lot of experience, so I don't want to bore you too much, but zodiac is a term used to describe those 12 divisions. It has to do with longitude lines. It has to do with the path of the sun, and each of them has that 30 degrees. So your rising sign, wherever it's placed, maps out exactly where everything else is going to lay in your chart. The degree of the rising sign determines how the houses start, okay? And so there's, my little chart is very weird. So I'm totally on board with you saying to me, well, yeah, my rising sign's this, but my 4th house is, already, inching toward that, or whatever, or however you look at it. But what I want you to do is I don't want you to look at it like it's dogmatic information. I want you to understand that these things mature as you get older. And though you might start your 4th house in Cancer, or your 4th house in Gemini, or your 4th house in Capricorn, or wherever your 4th house starts, it may, because of how your chart is mapped, you may be experiencing the next sign. Okay, so just realize that that's what's going to be happening. The reason I say that this is a karmic path is that not only because it maps the signs, but I want to go back. I want to do this right now. I want to do this right now. I'm going to go back one page for a second. The reason this is a karmic path is that your ascendant sign, and and a little bit of south node here, but the ascendant sign is the portal through which you come into this life. This is attached to your past life. Okay, so there is karma attached to the moment you enter the room. And it's critical to understand this because you are choosing in your past life. When we do the past life regression class, one of the coolest things that Mary Lee does, she does a lot of cool stuff in those regressions, but in the third session, we're going to do a life between life meditation where you get to see between the last life you had and this life, you're making decisions about contracts. Carolyn Mace, if you haven't read Carolyn Mace's book about soul contracts, I highly recommend it, especially if you're going to do that past life regression class. Your ascendant sign, that's why I wanted to do this class before we get to the past life regression, is the portal, is the indicator of your past life. So on your deathbed, in your past life, whatever sign you're in, because it's always in the 12th house, or it's moving into the first house. It's the transition between the 12th and the first house. In your past life, on your deathbed, this is something that you didn't do in your past life. You did not do it. And so it's like, okay, I'm resolved to, you either didn't do it or you have some kind of karmic connection to the ascendant sign. And as we go through each, you could see how it might lay out. And it is about something that you must do in this life, your karma. Your karma is going to show up in this ascendant sign. And the rising sign, like I talked about, mapping the zodiacal wheel. I know Colleen's going to yell at me because she won't yell at me, but she's going to laugh at me because we're talking about cusps in this class. This is where it's relevant. This is where cusp is relevant. Because as I'm talking about it, sort of moving from one sign to another, okay? Moving from, okay, wherever it is in the 12th house, moving into the first house. Oh, here we go. It's another sign all of a sudden. This is when you kind of get your sea legs about, oh, okay, I'm coming from a past life and I'm moving into this first house in a new life, okay? So that's why this is kind of interesting. So on your deathbed, the thing you must do in this life, this karma shows up in the ascendant sign. The rising sign determines, the ascendant, the rising sign determines what sign is on the cusp of critical houses in your life. For purposes of this class, there are only 4 houses. Well, no, that's not true. There's 6 houses we care about. The 4 houses we really care about, though, are the 1st and the 7th and the 4th and the 10th. Okay, so the ascendant and the descendant, right, exactly across the hall. And then the MC, the midheaven, and the IC down here at the, I don't know how to pronounce it, something, I'm going to say Ilium coli, but I think that's something that's in your intestines. So that's not true, but it's called the IC, and that's all you got to know about it right now. So the MC and the IC. So the cusp of the 10th house and the cusp of the 4th house. The first house cusp, where your ascendant is you and who you are in this life. This is past life karma that's coming through with you. This is what you need to do in this life. This has incredible relevance because everything else is laid out from there.
Hey, MJ, I have a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
So quite a few people, and I've seen this too, they'll pull different birth charts from different sources, and it'll have different information. So like Jennifer said, she has 3 birth charts. 2 say my ascending is Cancer. 1 says it's Gemini.
Well, first of all, you got to check and see what the system is that they're using. Okay. Second of all, there's some charts that are more, or there's some free systems online that are more effective than the other. It's not just Cancer and Cancer and then Leo, or Gemini and then Cancer. Look at the degrees. Get really deep into that information. Okay. If you're saying to me that you see in one of the charts, it's like 0 degrees Cancer, and another chart, it's 28 degrees Gemini, well, then one of those is obviously wrong. Okay. One of them's obviously wrong. We do like cafe astrology. Let's give them some that we recommend, Colleen.
But I did put astro charts into the reminder and into
Yeah.
the course. Yeah.
Yeah, and I want you to look, I want you to pay attention to I want you to be kind of a detective here, because it's very interesting to me. Are you using tropical or whole house? Because I think that can show you, if you're just looking at the wheel, all right, then it looks different. Different systems can look different. Oh, well, this looks like it's in the 12th house. Well, no, it looks like it's in the 1st house. I say that because as a 29-degree Libra, I've seen it both ways. But when you look at the degree, that's where it's at. I doubt you'll find anything like, oh, that says 28 degrees and this says 0 degrees of the next sign. That tells me that one of them is really ragingly wrong. The zodiacal wheel can look different, but look at the degrees. Okay, you got me? That's what you want to look at. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah, she says one says tropical and one says placidus.
Yeah, no. So you're going to the tropical one. Placidus is the default. I feel like I fall more into the tropical arena. But what I want you to do is I want you to choose one. Placidus is the default one that most Western astrologers use. Whole house or tropical is something that is becoming more in favor. All right. And it is different. It does look different, but you need to, and then Vedic is a whole other system. There's actually 3 systems of astrology. I think one is draconian or something like that. And no one uses it, so you don't care. But pay attention to the degrees, okay? And then stick with one chart until you really get to understand it. And when you're looking at whole house versus tropical, then you can kind of make some educated, the point of all of this stuff, the point of everything I'm doing here is so that you have information that you can work with, right? So that you can do some radical self-care around a thing. If it's meant for you to, sort of be working with information right now in 2 different systems, I think that's just going to mess with your head. So I would choose Placidus if I were you. Or tropical, whichever one you want, and just choose one. Choose one, okay? Okay. So look at the degrees. That's the most important thing. All right. So in the so you're looking at your zodiacal wheel, and the first house and 7th house and 4th house and 10th house. 1st house is important because it's you. 4th house it's your roots, right? The IC. Think of the IC and the MC, the 4th house and 10th house. Think of it as a tree with roots going down. So the 4th house is your mother and then your ancestors. You're standing on their shoulders, right? And then the 10th house is how you create your life. And those are like the leaves of the trees, right? That's what you're creating based on, where you're coming from. And then the 7th house is your immediate partner, your life partner, your husband, your wife, an intimate relationship. It can be about a business partner, but for purposes right now, and that's fine if you want to use it as a business partner thing, but for purposes right now, we're talking about your karmic path. And so it could be your karmic path that you are not to be married and this is all about business for you, and that's a fine thing. Whatever it is for you is correct for you, okay? So these are the 4 houses we're working with. There's 2 other houses that I think are really interesting to pay attention to. When your ascendant kind of puts that pin in the wheel and everything follows from that, the 9th house, whatever sign is in the 9th house, is who or what you learn from the most. So if your 9th house is in Cancer, you learned that you need, because 9th house is all about learning, higher learning and all of that kind of stuff. 9th house is in Cancer would be about learning from your heart, about learning how to feel, about learning that feelings are important, not just book learning, right? It's street smarts. It's, Cancer is about your ancestors being important to you, and, who you are as a person comes from that. And that might be something you might learn from. The 12th house is what unconsciously drives you. So if you have, and I don't want to step into North Node too much here, but if you have a North Node or a South Node in the 12th house, there's a good chance, even more than all the rest of us, that North Node will be very hard to get your hands around, okay? But unconsciously, it's driving you. So those are two houses that, you know, I sort of think they're kind of cool to talk about in relationship to this information, you know, and just put a pin in that and see how you might feel about that as we're talking.
MJ, before you move on.
Yep.
Two questions that I'm seeing a lot. One person asks, can you explain what cusp means again? I need a refresher on that term. And then
Well, okay.
A lot of people are saying, well, what if I don't have anything in one of those 4 houses? Like, what if I don't have anything in the 4th house?
Everybody has everything. You have all 12 signs. Okay. So that's the whole point. The first house, or wherever your ascendant is the, so if I'm a Libra ascendant, okay, the degree to which that ascendant is, it's right on the horizon at the time of your birth. So you don't need to have planets. We're not really talking about planets tonight. We're talking about every single sign is associated with or every single house is associated with a sign. So my first house is Scorpio. My second house is Sagittarius. These are going in order. My third house is Capricorn. My 4th house is Aquarius. 5th house, right? They go all the way around. So that's what we're talking about tonight, that it maps out which sign in which house. That's how it's your karmic path. Because as I'm going to explain to you, okay, tonight. So it's not really about the planets, not about the planets, okay? And a cusp is basically the point at which a sign begins. So a sign begins at 0 degrees and goes to 29 degrees, 59 minutes. It's essentially 30 degrees, and then it goes right to 0 again in the next sign. Okay, so every sign is 30 degrees. This is why whole house and tropical have kind of gone back and forth a little bit because of how big the houses are and small the houses are and things like that. But I don't want to, that's a very deep topic that I don't really think is appropriate for tonight, because we could go down that rabbit hole and you'll never hear anything about the ascendant. So the cusp is the point at which 0 degrees of the next sign starts. That's essentially what it is, okay? And when we talk about it in terms of other things, when we talk about in terms of North Node and other things, the true cusp, the very much like right on the line, must be like 29 degrees, 55 minutes, or 0 degrees, 5 minutes, right? This is a system of telling time. So if it popped up in this sign or that sign, but it's right there, there are elements of both signs. For this purposes, with the ascendant, it really does go back a degree or 2. So if you have a 28 degree, 29 degree ascendant, then you are going to find, the reason for this is, first house is going to be how you are projecting yourself, how you're putting yourself out there is very different than that ascendant. In my theory is that you are, well, it's not just my theory, there's a lot of science around this, but you are moving from one karmic lifetime, one karmic path to another, okay? And you're coming in still with karma to take care of. And so that's why 28 and 29 degrees still matter. It's not just like, oh, I'm Scorpio, I'm a Scorpio first house. That's still relevant. But just try to understand that you still, in the early part of your life, will have access to that energy. And it is important, okay? So the other thing that's important to know about the ascendant is the degree. So I'm talking about 29 degrees because that's my ascendant. Pay attention to what the degree is. We don't talk too much about degrees here unless it's what I just explained to you, that 29 degrees, 55 minutes, or, you know, across the hall at 0 degrees, 5 minutes. We don't normally talk about that, but the ascendant degree is the most important degree in your whole astrology chart. Okay? Because anytime any planet is within a couple degrees either way of that degree. So an ascendant, let's say it's 17 degrees Gemini. If you have planets in your birth chart that are between 14 and 20 degrees, that means they're powerful. That means they're stronger. So for example, if you have your North Node in 14 to 20 degrees, any sign, right? Any planet, any sign, then that planet is elevated in power in your life. So not everything is the same, right? Not everything has the same amount of power. The ascendant can really be the thing that accelerates something or pulls it back. Okay? So any planet in the exact degree, 17 degrees, is the strongest influence. So pay attention to that in your birth chart. Transits and progressions follow this model. So if you get to the point where you're paying attention to progressed sun, progressed moon, any of the personal planets, sun, moon, Venus, Mercury, Mars, if you're paying attention to any of those planets, to a lesser degree, Saturn and Jupiter, it's just because they're further away. And then out there is Neptune and Uranus and Pluto. Those are pretty powerful planets, but they move slowly. They move generationally, right? They move super slowly. Saturn and Jupiter move a little bit faster. And then the personal planets move really fast, right? Your sun, we're going around the sun all the time. The moon moves quickly. The sun moves 1 degree a year, okay, in your chart. So that's progressed sun. When you're looking at your chart, okay, I started 17 degrees Sag. That's where my sun sign is. And I'm 55 years old. So it's progressed 55 degrees, right? It's moved through and it's now out of Sag, it's out of Capricorn, and it's into Aquarius. So that's what I mean by your birth chart matures with you. So for this purpose, when we're talking about the degree of the ascendant, it is so important. The ascendant is so important that whenever you hit a degree, whenever you hit 17 degrees, if that's your ascendant degree, you're going to have massive change, upheaval, love, issues, whatever the planetary influence is, okay? You're going to have some kind of thing go on. This is what is called predictive astrology. So pay attention to the degree of your ascendant. And, we're not really going to go through progressions or anything like that tonight, but I just wanted to call that out. That's another reason the ascendant is so critical. So my ascendant's at 29 degrees. That means across the hall, my descendant is also 29 degrees. And that means that moving into that relationship experience, I started in Aries because my ascendant sign is Libra, right? They're opposite each other. So my descendant sign is Aries, but only for a short time, only when I was little, right? And then it moved into Taurus. Like when I was a teenager, it moved into Taurus, or when I was 8 or 9 or 3 or whatever it was. I mean, it's one of those things that you have to kind of see your life and look back at your life and be like, oh yeah, I see how that, now I'm interested in someone who's, a Taurus. I need someone who's damn stable because I like change. I need someone who's like that. So that's why I want to talk to you about this tonight, because I think you can see how that might work in your life. It's also important to pay attention to that first house sign. So especially if you are at the end of a sign, that's where your ascendant is. Your first house is going to be fairly young in your life that it's going to shift into a new sign. So pay attention to both of these ascendant signs. I could effectively now be a Scorpio ascendant. So pay attention to that because, things have changed. And you could more relate to that, especially since I'm over 30. I'm way over 30. So that Libra is in the rear view, and so is that Aries in the rear view mirror. Okay. So I've been saying this to death, that your chart matures as you get older. So this is the karmic path. This is the information that I wanted to express to you tonight. Is first house, your ascendant, 7th house, your descendant, 4th house, your roots, and your 10th house is your career. Those 4 houses really show you what your life is going, how, you know, in broad strokes, how the karma of your life is going to show up for you, right? And how you're going to show up for it. What's going to be important to you and what's going to challenge you, okay? So I like this 9th house and 12th house thing because the unconscious desire is driven by 12th house and the 9th house is what you learn by. Wow, I think that's cool information. All right.
MJ,
So
do you have any recommendations on where to get a progressed chart?
I bought another Mac because I have an astrology program that's super large. You can get wherever you get your, I think Cafe Astrology does them, progress charts. Progressions are different than transits. Let me explain the difference, okay? Progressions are internal to you, okay? This is what's going on inside you, how you're, you know, sort of working with this, with, you know, your sun and your moon and all this kind of stuff. Transits are what's going on outside of you. Transits are like other people being affected by things and stuff like that. So, you know, don't confuse the two. It's interesting to see them both. It's interesting to see how that might work. Like, oh, wow, look at what's going on in the world. Transits, that's what we talk about a lot on the channel. I talk about, sun square, I don't know, sun square Mars or whatever. And, we're talking about that. That's a transit we're talking about. Progressions are personal to you. So that's really important information. And I would bet Cafe Astrology would do something like that. They're pretty big. I don't know about Astro Dash.
I couldn't find any on there.
Yeah, progressions are, you found transits though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, transits are there. Progressions are, I think they're not as popular in terms of like, because people want to see transits. People want to see how I interact in the world with other people. I think progressions are pretty cool to get like the, because I'm 8th house North Node. I want to get down deep underneath information. That's what the progress signs are all about. So check Cafe Astrology, I guess. If you want to pay for an astrology program, they're not cheap. I think I paid $1,000 for an astrology program, and it's very comprehensive, as you might understand. It continually gets updated. It's connected to the web. It's just freaking amazing. If anybody's interested, I'll tell you what it is. I don't know off the top of my head, but let's see. So there's some things here. I saw Braca Goldsmith did a really good video about critical degrees. And I only want to call out a few things around the degrees here for our purposes tonight. I think we could spend a lot of time talking about the degrees. And you know what? It's something that's totally glossed over by a lot of Western astrology. But the ascendant, or wherever you are, 29 degrees, if you have 29 degrees in your chart, it's called the anaretic degree, okay? And this is the final degree of any sign. It is called the degree of fate. And it indicates you're poised for a big change. So as you come into this life, where you come in is likely going to change really fast. So some of you know I'm an adopted kid. So coming in at 29 degrees, I came into one family and was moved to another family. It's very common with adopted kids that they have a 29 degree. I read that in an article somewhere and I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. It shows, it does show me a lot about astrology, that's what it is. Some astrologers, because it's something about, it happens when you're so young, like you're coming into the world, and this is like you're at the end of some kind of cycle in your soul progression, right? In your soul's journey. You're at the very end of something. So it's almost like, coming out of a dream, and you want to grab onto it. You want to hold onto it. Like I got to remember what that is. And it's not that it's not relevant. It is relevant, but it's also kind of ephemera. Okay. And there's a lot of astrologers who believe there's not really much you can do about this 29 degree thing, that you are going to undergo massive change. look, first of all, the adoption. I didn't have nothing to do with that. And then my father passing away, I didn't have nothing to do with that either, right? These are things that happened around me. This can be stuff that is like, coming in with birth defects. This can be, things that have, this is not about a punishment. This is not that. This is about the type of life that is your karmic path. And, an adoption and older parents and early death, that's what happens when your parents are 52 when they adopt you, which I don't know how they let that happen. I think they were crazy. But, they die earlier in your life, right? So you have more of an experience of death than, most people. A lot of my friends right now are dealing with the deaths of their parents or the illness of their parents or whatever. I'm like, wow, that was a long time ago for me. My mother died when I was in my early 30s. So, that seems like, forever ago that I was dealing with all that. And that's part of my karmic experience, that I'm, when both of your parents die, you're sort of like the head of the line, right? Like you're, nobody's daughter anymore. You're just, you're the wise sage, or you're the leader of the parade, or whatever you are. So when you're looking at this 29 degrees, if anybody has it, it's very interesting. 0 degrees, the opposite side of that, is very pure and undiluted kind of experience. So my 29 degrees Libra is like, been there, done that, got the t-shirt, right? I know all about it. I know all about balancing things, being in a relationship, got it, no sweat. The 0 degrees is the opposite. It's a very new experience. So your degree of your coming in to the universe, or coming into the earth, showing up in earth, is relevant because it is showing you what you also have to learn in that lifetime, if you have to go through that whole sign, right? If you are 0 degrees Sagittarius, then you're probably at a very new soul evolution, right? You have passed through some kind of lifetime where, okay, this is brand new, boom, new language to learn, new rules to learn, undiluted nature for you. The energy of the sign is new territory, plenty of work to be done. In the middle degrees, some of the astrologers that I've read have said that that's when people get really entrenched in the energy. So if your chart looks like every house is split into 2 signs, okay, then you've come in at an entrenched position. I mean, a position where you are experienced and you still use that experience for a while. And then, when you're 45, bam, things change, right? So that's kind of an interesting piece about being in the middle degrees too. So the houses represent the areas of your life affected, and all of those 4 signs that I just talked about, the you and your relationships and your ancestors, your roots and your career, those 4 places. And the sign that the ascendant is in is the very beginning, the energy of how you're going to end up working with all of these lessons. Even though these are in separate signs, okay, these are all in different signs, there is a relational energy between Libra and Aries, and Cancer and Capricorn. There is a relationship between the 2. Those of you who've taken my North Node class, you understand that it's going back and forth between the 2. So it's interesting to see how that plays out when, from your birth into becoming a married person, and how those things, interact with each other. That's kind of a fun way to look at it too. So I just left this in here from the North Node class, because I want you to kind of get used to having the signs that are the opposites. So Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, these are always opposite each other, always, okay? And the houses are always opposite each other. First house, 7th house, that's about the self, and then it's about the other, right? The partner. 2nd house and 8th house, 3rd house and 9th house. 4th house and 10th house for our purposes tonight are about private, your ancestors, your roots versus your public, how you are being out in the world in a career. So I just want you to get used to understanding it. It will help you as you work through astrology to keep that in your head, that the opposites exist for a reason. Okay, they balance. So I want to just go through these and I want to give you kind of an overview. And then, you know, before the April 1st class, what I want you to do is I want you to kind of work with this information. And I didn't really have a ton of space in each of these, you know, pages to really go deeply into the signs or anything like that. But what I want you to do is look at your own chart and see how you are mapped out, okay? See what is the cusp of your 1st house, the cusp of your 4th house, the cusp of your 7th house, and the cusp of your 10th house. What sign is that in? Pay attention to the degree, okay? So it looks like it's right on the line between Leo and Virgo. Okay, well then you need to go look at the chart of it and look at the degree, because it is one or the other. It is one or the other. And that will help you instead of getting confused like, oh, it looks like it's, you know, it looks like it's one or the other. I can't really see. I want you to work with this information. Okay, so when we come back together on April 1st, the questions are more about like how this might work in a life. What might this look like? Or how do I work with this information? That's something I really want to help you understand is, you know, this information is about helping you live a better life, right? And working through your own healing. So the 1st house ascendant, if you have an Aries ascendant, okay, that means that your, you know, Aries is in the 1st house, likely. And if it's late in the degree, then you're going to see Taurus in that 1st house. But Aries as the ascendant, that means Libra is over here in your 7th house descendant. That's your relationship, okay? Cancer is in your 4th house, your roots and how you're raised. Capricorn is your 10th house. This Aries ascendant, I have not met too many Aries ascendant people for some reason. And this is because, I don't know why this is, but this is the natural chart. Okay, so when someone has the natural chart, the astrological year starts on March 21st or March 20th. That's Aries, right? That position, that 1st house, that is the natural beginning. That's when the year is born. So that's why, you know, 1st house, Aries goes all the way around to Pisces. Your 1st house may or may not be that way. If you have an Aries ascendant, it's going to lay out like the natural chart. And sometimes in classes, when I hear someone saying about Aries being in the 1st house and things like that, I'm always like, I haven't met very many people that have that Aries placement right at the as the ascendant. For some, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of them around, okay? But that doesn't mean it's your sun sign, right? The ascendant is different than your sun sign, okay? So I want to make that clear. This is about your ascendant sign. So if you have Aries in the 1st house, that means you have Libra in the 7th house, Cancer in the 4th house, and Capricorn in the 10th. You know, these are cardinal signs. These are signs of starting stuff. The new seasons are born at these times with these 4 signs. It's about being a bold leader, being a self-starter, taking action. And it can be a little bit about, you know, having a situation where your relationship, you have to learn how to balance your relationship. You have to learn how to not be an emperor in your relationship. Your 4th house, your roots and how you were raised, you know, you're really someone who may have had parents who were very caring, a mother who was, you know, a stay-at-home mom or something like that. You may have had something like that. And up in your midheaven, you know, Capricorn in the 10th house is the career guy. So this is very, this is very natural to the houses. This is every single sign is in a house that it's comfortable in. Okay, so that's why these people generally are emperors, because they don't have too many things that are blocking them. Now, that being said, Aries can have problems with aggressiveness and controlling natures. They can have, this is how it shows up, that you are, you've come through into this life as somebody who's the emperor, and damn it, this is how it's going to work for you. So it just depends on how much of that energy you are really embodying, and also how positive, how much you've been able to work with it. Are you able to have a relationship? Are you able to deal with your mom? Or do you really care about your roots if your parents are gone? Do you care about, your ancestry? A lot of people do ancestries and stuff with this placement. And then that Capricorn 10th house, just, a workhorse, someone who is really good at their work and very, very much climbing to the top of the corporate ladder. That's usually what you see with an Aries ascendant and having Aries in the first house. With Taurus ascendant, this person is a builder. So if you have a Taurus ascendant, if it's late in the degree, you're going to have Gemini in the first house and Sagittarius in the 7th house. But if you are a true Taurus ascendant, then Scorpio, the sign across the hall, this is why I was trying to get you used to that, is in your relationship house. And so these Taurus people, Taurus ascendant people, can have a lot of very behind the scenes, mysterious relationships. They like people who are not, let's see, we used to describe them as like, I pick things up and I put them down. The people who are Scorpio, who have Scorpio in the 7th house, really like a deep emotional bond, but you never know it by this Taurus demeanor that they're putting out there. It's very, I don't know, Susie Homemaker, but it's somebody who is, very practical and patient and reliable, but boy, that relationship is rocking. It's very behind the scenes, super passionate and things like that. That's what you need. So if you are that Taurus ascendant, that is what will work for you. If you have, with this placement, you have Leo in that 4th house, and you are raised, you could be like an only child, you're raised to be seen. You want to, that's what your expectation is, or you feel like, usually these people are quite beautiful, and their parents are like, really fawn all over them. A lot of these placements can also be the opposite. If you have the opposite experience, that means something too. That means that it's here for you to work with this energy. So the Taurus ascendant will have Aquarius in the 10th house, and that's all about the team, all about the team. So even though this person is raised to be seen, they're going to knuckle under to the team because they're the builder, okay? And a Taurus ascendant believes in material possessions, believes in having a comfortable home, and wants to have a garden, and wants to be married to a provider or be a provider. Most of the time they could be married to a provider. And the shadow side of this is too rigid, too stubborn. And with that Scorpio energy, there could be some explosive stuff behind the scenes, especially if they were spoiled as a child with that Leo 4th house and that Aquarius 10th house. Nobody cared about them in the team. It was just like, you got to be pulling the sleigh just like everybody else. So there's a little bit of that here. And it is, that's an interesting one, the builder. So with Gemini, so I want to say to you, when you look at your houses, like I said, mine's 29 degrees and 29 degrees. So that means the 29 degrees across the house, but my 4th house is a little bit different because of that late degree that it started. Okay, the late degree is pushing it into Aquarius instead of it being in Capricorn. So I just want to say that to you. That's why I want you to work with this information. All right, so if you have a Gemini ascendant, definitely the magician, definitely somebody who's very capable, somebody who's a storyteller, writer, messenger, teacher, somebody like that. If you're late in the degree, you could have Cancer in the 1st house as opposed to Gemini, and Capricorn in the 7th house. But if you have a, you know, a mid-degree or early degree Gemini ascendant, then Gemini is in your first house. In the 7th house, you'll have Sag. So this Gemini Sag thing, Colleen and I, Colleen's Gemini, I'm Sag. And there's a really interesting, good connection that she's very good at details. I have bigger picture thinking, you know, she's really good at technology. I prefer to use the technology rather than be overwhelmed by how I have to get into it. And it just works. Okay. So a lot of this Gemini Sagittarius, you can find that someone who is a Gemini ascendant can handle someone who needs freedom. It's like Gemini is the anchor and Sagittarius is the one who's the person who's traveling or whatever. A lot of Gemini ascendants can handle that. Okay. However, your family, okay, Virgo 4th house, was very focused on the details. And so that's why Gemini 1st house, like they could get along really well with that Virgo family. You know, Virgo is the perfectionist. So Gemini can really, you know, vibe with that pretty well. But their career, okay, so up in 10th house, Pisces, it's going to be more mystical and magical. They need that Sagittarius energy to help them move from being, you know, too sort of detail oriented, head down in the books and kind of things like that, to open themselves up. So that this person is somebody who really benefits from that Sagittarius kind of, you know, don't fence me in kind of energy. So the shadow of Gemini ascendant can be scattered and superficial and nervous. The archetype of it, though, or the positive part of it, is very adaptable, very perceptive, very clever, able to really pull together details and things like that. So this is, you know, the Gemini piece is because obviously Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So it's an ascendant that can do a lot of stuff. Okay, this person can really do a lot of stuff. And they're coming in with all of that awareness from their past life. Okay. The Cancer ascendant is known as the nurturer. And I'm not going to keep going through the late degree stuff because you can understand that now. So if you have a Cancer ascendant and you have Cancer in your 1st house, you right away are someone who is a nurturer, very, you know, very much into healing, protective, could be traditional. The shadow side of that depends on your upbringing, because I see Leo in the 4th house here, where you have peace at any cost. If Libra is in the 4th house, there's a lot of both sidisms here, and that can really screw with a kid when you have this, like, well, it could be this or it could be that. I mean, kids do better when there is some kind of like, this is what we believe. Later on, they can blow that off and do their own belief system. But if you have a lot of that, like, I don't know, it's one or this, it's this or that, I'm not sure, then the shadow side of Cancer can be very clingy and dependent and insecure because they don't know where to place their nurturing, right? They don't know where they belong. So that Libra 4th house can really be a little bit difficult, I think anyway. The Capricorn in the 7th house, so across the hall, their descendant, the person they need is someone who's freaking stable, okay? Someone who is able to have a nurturing partner and still somebody who isn't gonna, you know, sort of float off into the ether with them. They need somebody who's an anchor. And, you know, Capricorn in the 7th house is willing to work on things with the nurturer, willing to let that nurturer be who they are. And, you know, the Capricorn needs to, you know, be the one maybe out in the world or something like that. Or they are a good pair where the Cancer has a career that's very heart-centric or healing, and the Capricorn has one that is a little more corporate or something like that. But the Capricorn is somebody who really understands about how to work on stuff, okay? Because they're ruled by Saturn. This Libra 4th house is something that I feel like is a little bit woogity for these people. And that Aries 10th house, that means I'm in control, everything's okay. So this person who has the Cancer ascendant with this peace at any cost thing can really find themselves being very, controlling, okay, and not honest, right? Like trying to keep things, everything's fine, everything's normal, nothing to see here, okay? And it's because they're, if they have that Capricorn partner, that's a pretty good thing, because that's going to make them feel safe enough for life to happen, okay? So the Leo ascendant is known as the performer. And with Leo at that, coming into the, you're coming into the life with that creative spark. This is like that beautiful child that, is just always putting on shows and singing and dancing and doing all kinds of stuff and really loving whatever creativity it is, whatever it is. It could be Legos, it could be NASA, it could be dinosaurs, it could be whatever it is. But there has to be some kind of performance art that goes along with it, music or something like that. Across the hall, their partner is a little bit cool and detached. The partner is the one that's sitting in the audience being like, that's lovely, dear. Okay. So the Aquarius is the one who can be, I don't care if I'm the one that's being seen. It's really about you, darling. I had a friend who, oh God, well, I don't know if I'd call her a friend. She was somebody I went to high school with, and she was in all the shows. Okay. And Shelly was her name. She was in all the shows, and she had an amazing wardrobe. She would get full makeup and a new dress, a gown for Golden Globes and for the Oscars. And her husband the whole time was like, just lovely. She would have her picture taken. I was just like, what are you doing? You live in Connecticut. What is this about? But she's definitely Leo first house. Okay. She loves all that stuff. And her partner was very cool and detached about it. Her house, she was raised with a lot of secrets. Scorpio in that fourth house, there could have been some kind of addiction there. There could have been, but even no matter what it is, it could be that like, oh, we don't eat peanuts. Right. And that's seen as a secret in this house. Like whatever it is, as kids, like if something's a secret, like it's taboo, it's something that's over there. It could be nothing, right? Like something that was a secret in my house, like, oh no, let's not talk about sex or whatever. In someone else's house, it's like, topic of dinner conversation. Like it doesn't matter. Whatever the secret was in this house, there was something there that kind of, shaped her in that way and made her want to be seen more. And with that 10th house in her career, it was definitely about, I need some stability in my life. And I think it felt to me like whatever she was going to do performing, she had to have a stable job. So that's why she did a lot of community theater. She never went to New York. She had a beautiful voice, never went to New York, but she had some kind of stability that she had that was okay for her. All right, some kind of stable career. I think she was like a dental hygienist or something like that. So, oh my God. So this was definitely, Shelly, when I was writing this, I thought to myself that she was definitely the icon I wanted to share with you about that. So Virgo ascendant, if you have Virgo in the ascendant, that means on the other side is Pisces. And so Virgo is very much a perfectionist. Sometimes this person is known as, a cubicle dweller or a sacred servant or something like that. When you come into the world with this ascendant, it feels to me like you are about to create something magical for yourself because you have that ability to be service oriented, have routine. And then if you have a partner who's super magical, you can create something really cool. If you have another person who's a perfectionist, that's going to be a little challenging. Okay. That's going to be a little challenging. That person's partner is likely to be psychic, likely to be, very mystical, a poet, an artist, a photographer, or something like that. The fourth house, raised in a house that, my beliefs create my reality. So as a Virgo rising sign, it almost feels like you don't have a chance to really run with it. But I'm raised in a house where everybody wants to run free. So I got to batten down the hatches. I have got to be making sure that, you know, this is like a kid who, you know, makes breakfast for themselves before they go to school when they're little. This is somebody who is maybe getting food on the table for other people. This is somebody who's a little grown up very quickly. And because a lot of the times the parents are just, you know, it's not that it's not a stable home. It's a different kind of home, and a Virgo ascendant feels like they need to, okay? Feels like they need to do these things. Who, you know, their partner as mystical and magical, that really allows them to be more creative themselves. And with their career up in Gemini, they can be creative, but damn, they dig deep for those answers, right? They are somebody who can combine their creativity, their you know, ability to communicate, their ability to create some kind of structure in a very powerful way. And Gemini is about being a messenger. So they, and also about, it's like a reporter, okay? Somebody who keeps meticulous notes, right? Somebody who does a lot of research, okay? And you see the opposite energy here of Sagittarius and Pisces. So there's kind of an interesting combination there. Libra in the ascendant is, I call this the divine feminine, divine masculine, because Libra is the energy of relationships. Its natural house is across the hall. Its natural house is the 7th house. So when you come in as the ascendant in Libra, this is definitely the balance of those two, okay? So Aries is over here in the opposite place on the chart, right? We finally turned the chart upside down. So Aries is used to being, or a natural placement is 1st house. Now it's in 7th house. So if you're dealing with a couple here who in a past life was the other one. So Libra was somebody in past life that was likely Aries, and Aries in past life was likely somebody who was Libra. And they get each other, okay? They get each other. They're in new territory now, and however late in the degree you are, this doesn't only mean Libra ascendants are not the only people who are twin flames. That's just not true. And plenty of Libra ascendants are not twin flames, so it doesn't matter about that. But I'm calling it that because of the Libra Aries connection with the opposite houses. So that means that in the 4th house, you have Capricorn, and in the 10th house, you have Cancer. That's also opposite, right? Because the chart is turned upside down, the natural chart turned upside down. So Capricorn in the opposite house of where it's used to be is raised to do the work. This is another child that likely is somebody who, because of their Libra ascendant, they're probably people pleasers, or they're probably somebody who knows their place. They must create value, okay? The Capricorn 4th house child, you must create value. This is a recipe for a little bit of conditional love. Okay, you must be pulling your weight. Okay, and that's a little sad, but you must be doing that. You must be creating some value. And the more extreme it gets in the family, the more it becomes conditional love. So not always, but sometimes that can happen. And then with Cancer in the 10th house, that means that their work must be a heart-based experience for them. They don't want to, you know, this is not about being a pure corporate animal at all. This is about somebody who needs to, maybe would be working for, like, you know, a charity, or someone who is a healer, someone who works with you know, children, something like that. Okay, so I haven't really talked that much about 9th house and 12th house, and I think I'm going to table that for now because that's a little bit extra material, and I know it's like already 7:30 or 7:19. So we can talk about that in the April 1st thing, but I just thought you'd be interested to that. When you look at your chart, when you see your ascendant, what's in the 9th house and what's in the 12th house, right? 9th house is who you learn from, and 12th house is unconscious drivers in your life. So we can talk about that April 1st, I think. the Libra ascendant is somebody who is usually very beautiful, graceful, elegant, artistic. And the flip side of this is indecisive and approval seeking and a bit passive aggressive. They might have trouble with communication. That's why having an Aries partner is something that is will help them step up. Okay, help them step up into a balanced relationship. The Aries needs to balance with them in the sense that they're not bigfooting the Libra all the time, and the Libra needs to speak their truth, all right, in order to be happy in relationships. Scorpio ascendant. So if you have a Scorpio ascendant or you have Scorpio in the first house, I call this the shaman, okay? This person is somebody who is, because Scorpio is definitely a sorcerer, a therapist, a transformer, an investigator, someone who reads tarot, someone who is mystical. Scorpio is about deeply felt emotion. It is about transformation. All right. It's all about transformation. So I was saying to you that my ascendant is 29 degrees Libra, very quickly moving into this first house, Scorpio. And this is how you would put yourself out into the world. Obviously, the person across the hall is a Taurus, because the Scorpio first house person likely needs someone pretty stable. And it doesn't mean, like, if you look at someone's chart, there's so many other things. There's North Node, there's all kinds of other stuff, but it's going to feel satisfying to have a Taurus if you're Scorpio ascendant. It's going to feel satisfying because that Taurus person is someone who is all about loyalty, and Scorpio is weird as fuck. I'm just going to say it because I'm that. So I'm going to say this, that you don't trust people very easily. Scorpios don't trust people, and other people think they can be like, Scorpio, you're a little bit dark there. I don't really trust you, but it's really Scorpio that's not trusting other people. If you have earned a Scorpio's trust, just like, do not cross that, because that will be gone forever. Just like don't lie to a Sag, same thing is don't cross a Scorpio. Don't do something that will make them distrust you. Okay, their default setting is distrust, unfortunately. So Taurus in the seventh house, really someone stable who's like, obviously trustworthy and things like that. That's what they're looking for, or that's what will make them feel safe. That Aquarius fourth house, raised to be somewhat self-sufficient. Family could be a bit detached. And that's another reason why the Scorpio ascendant can not trust people, because you just don't know what other people are thinking. Aquarius is very poker face. You just don't know what other people are thinking, okay? And so that can plant the seed of a lack of trust. Leo in the 10th house is their career. So this visibility is something that's good for them. And also mysticism, because they're coming from a place of mysticism already. And so with Leo in the 10th house, they get to shine their freak flag, okay? They get to show who they are. And when they do that, that does, sort of elevate them in a very important way. So the positive nature of Scorpio is about being passionate and intense and mysterious. The shadow side is a little bit controlling or emotionally very complicated. And so a lot of times Taurus, you can, if Taurus digs Scorpio though, okay? Taurus will dig that the same way Scorpio will dig a Taurus. And if there's some kind of other stuff in the chart that makes that conflict, I think that's deeply upsetting when a Scorpio first house runs across a Taurus that is not trustworthy or something like that. It's deeply upsetting, okay? So Sagittarius ascendant, this is called the seeker, someone who is seeking information. They love an interesting, diverse partner, which Gemini definitely is. Someone they can appreciate the different skill set that a Gemini has, as I was talking about with me and Colleen. And I'm sure her husband Ray figures that, is appreciative of that too, right, Colleen? You have a lot of amazing skills. So that Gemini 7th house descendant loves an interesting, diverse partner. The Sagittarius, they get along really well. And that Pisces in the 4th house with the Sagittarius ascendant, this again is lots of secrets in the home, okay? There can be, you can also have some kind of mystical connection to your ancestors. You could have like a mother or a great aunt or something like that who was a psychic, or your mother could read tarot cards or something like that. And that could serve as being secrets, but it's more mystical. It's more mysticism. All right. So that's really interesting. And then there's Virgo in the house of career, which is like service. So it can be a service-oriented thing that's rooted in mysticism, but having that 10th house, being someone who is very organized and diligent and, a teacher or a guru or a scholar, that's what this Sagittarius ascendant can seek or can be, which is super interesting. So we have Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, and then we're all set for the night. Capricorn ascendant is known as the master. This person will work themselves always. They'll always be working at things. They will always, if whatever they do, it is going to be, they're going to methodically work at everything they do. They know they have to, perfect their skill. There's nothing haphazard about this person. That Capricorn, the master, the Capricorn ascendant, across the house, across the way in their 7th house is Cancer. They need a nurturer. They need someone to take care of them because they're just spending all their time working. Okay. If Aries is in the 4th house here, you got parents who are like career oriented, off doing their thing. It's like, hey, rub some dirt on it. Let's go. That's why that Capricorn ascendant is like, I want a nurturing partner because my parents were a little bit high powered, or my parents were a little bit, I think of Leonard on Big Bang. He's the nurturer though. He's the one who's the Cancer, it feels to me. He had very Capricornian and Aries like parents. And so of course, Penny is someone who is the opposite of him, right? And so it kind of works. She's the Capricorn. She turns out to be the Capricorn, and he's the Cancer. Very interesting how they did that. So Libra in the career house, it's like, let's all get going. Come on now, let's move along. So in a career, this person is a team player, but they are going to be the leader of a team, like an architect or something like that. They're going to be somebody who loves beauty, someone who's, leading a group, like an advisor, like a hedge fund leader or something like that. It's going to be all about the team in that 10th house. So that's interesting too. The Aquarius ascendant, I really view this as like the visionary. The Aquarius, if you think of the star card, like the view from above, this person sees the big picture. King of Swords, person sees the big picture. And there's somebody who is, Aquarius ascendant can be a little detached, okay? But they're also somebody who is very driven by their own belief, okay? Humanitarian, they can be a rebel, genius, sage, inventor, somebody who has an idea and they're going to break through. They're going to upend stuff. They're going to, be somebody who is, revolutionizing things. They could be somebody who also speaks out for human rights and things like that. Their partner, their fulfilling partner, is someone who is a Leo, someone who is very beautiful, someone who's also a lover of all kind of creativity. That Leo is going to worship that Aquarius visionary kind of thing. They see the creativity of it. They get it. They just get each other. You know what I mean? They were likely raised in a house with stability, strong ancestry, the Taurus house, which is, it's comfortable, it's nice, we all get along. It's something that is, you may have friends, you might be friends with your siblings, kind of a thing like that. And that Scorpio 10th house is about being a deeply unconventional change agent. So when you have this Aquarius ascendant, you can be somebody who is very much a upending current belief systems, or, you know, really speaking out on things, not afraid to stand up for what they believe in. That person is very, very powerful in a corporate setting, very, very powerful in humanitarian organizations, things like that. They are also very loyal friends. Even though they're a little detached emotionally, they are very loyal friends. Excuse me. And the Pisces ascendant, the final one, I call this the mystical dreamer. So when you have a Pisces ascendant, you have Virgo across the way in the other house, in the 7th house. And a Pisces mystical dreamer needs a detail-oriented partner, somebody who has, you know, somebody who will pay the electric bill, somebody who knows where the checkbook is. Okay, that Pisces ascendant is somebody who has other concerns, right? They're busy dealing with the beauty of the world. And as they move into Aries, this is the biggest one, I think, especially if you have a Pisces ascendant. And then we're back to this Pisces Aries thing, right? We're back to the 12th house, 1st house. And if you are somebody late in Pisces, it's my opinion, and I have no science to back this up, but I would love to see somebody's Pisces ascendant, and, you know, like 100 of them, Pisces ascendant charts, to see about, you know, old soul, kind of new soul, moving into a completely different soul mission in this life. Okay, that would be very interesting to see. And so having that Virgo partner really grounds them. And, you know, they might have had a family growing up that is full of curiosity and exploration, and is kind of, you know, embracing this mystical dreamer. And that Sagittarius 10th house, this person is likely to be someone who is mystic, a poet. College professors sometimes are here. And it's just somebody who is really thinking the big ideas, along with that Aquarius, but definitely the Pisces too. This is more about spiritual ideas rather than, you know, the Aquarius ascendant could be somebody who comes in to, you know, like Tesla, that dude, and, you know, people who come up with brand new ideas that break the mold, you know, Steve Jobs, people like that who are not about traveling the status quo. There's somebody who came in and sees a thing and they want to break it. Okay, that's the Aquarius ascendant. Pisces is more about connecting the other world with us. They want to be the bridge. They want to be somebody who is bringing that in. So it's interesting to see with all these different ascendants, now that we've talked through all 12 of them, it's interesting to see all of that information and how that might play out for you. There are lots of different ways to look at the signs. So I just gave you my sort of, you know, take on it. But if you have different takes on it, very interesting to hear about those kind of takes and how you were actually raised and what that looked like, and how you might be, you know, working through your karma in this world. So there's a little appendix here at the end of the workbook. I just want to, you know, call this out. We're going to end the class pretty soon here. But at the end here, you know me, I like to give people sentences to work with information. And this is just like a fill in the blank thing with your sun sign, your moon sign, and your ascendant sign. It just gives you a way of looking at things. North Node class, I did the same thing. I think Chiron class, I did the same thing. And that's what I think moving forward, we're going to be doing more of classes around working with this information, okay? Especially if you're like, I don't know, I see a little bit of this, I'm not seeing that. I'm very interested to hear about that. So I put some meanings of the 12 houses in here. I just wanted to give you a couple of bits of information. I put this in almost every workbook. Top 5 psychic gift indicators in your chart. This has nothing to do with the ascendant necessarily, but it's something that's interesting for you to, while you're looking at your astrology chart, and indicators to look for regarding marriage. So these are and financial success. These are my frequently asked questions. So I wanted to put them in there. So Colleen, there's anything before we close tonight?
No, I mean, I think I'll be honest, I was impressed. You really were, this was great. You were able to give a lot of detail.
Thank you.
No, I think everybody's just looking forward to the Q&A session
Cool.
next week, and we'll.
Cool. That is going to be fun. I'm going to be in a very high vibrational location. Not that Maine isn't. Maine is, today was like one of the most beautiful days, even though I had to remind myself it was March. Sedona is just the super high vibration. I'm looking forward to that. And it'll be great to do this kind of Q&A there. So I'm looking forward to it too. So thanks very much for tonight. I hope this was helpful for you. And, please work with this information and bring your questions, and we'll talk about it April 1st. All right. So thank you very much. Let's see. I'll stop sharing here. So thank you very much. Let's see. Anything? So there's nothing else here. I'm just going to say goodnight to everybody. Are you doing classes in Sedona? I live in Phoenix. I'm not doing anything. Hi, Kat. I'm not doing anything live, but I'm going to be just there hiking around. I'm going by myself. It's like a little spiritual pilgrimage for me. I have my shot this Friday, so I'm super excited about that. All right. So take care, everybody. We'll see you April 1st.
All right, I hope that class was helpful to you. If you're looking for any other classes, I teach quite a few, especially about karmic mission and purpose, North Node classes, and astrology and other things. There's a link here in the description box for all the classes that I teach, all the classes that are already online, just awaiting your attention. And I hope to see you there.